Hi, my name is Jeffrey Smith with the Institute for Responsible Technology, and I'm in Maui, Hawaii. And I want to first say thank you all for marching against Monsanto. And I want to tell you that what's happening here in Hawaii is a microcosm of this struggle. Now, Hawaii is ground zero for the production of genetically engineered seeds and also the experimentation of new GMOs. Kauai was successful in demanding from the biotech industry that they disclose how many agricultural chemicals they're using and what type. It turns out they're spraying 2 to 4 tons per week of agricultural chemicals. No wonder they're reporting a much higher percentage of birth defects and cancer on that island, especially in the areas around the spraying. Now here in Maui, the SHAKA Movement has basically decided to give the citizens control. They're using a provision in the government here that allows them to vote, like a ballot initiative, to create a moratorium on GMOs and the agricultural chemicals used on those crops until they have been proven safe. So this is a very exciting program that the entire world is looking at, and that once they hand in the petitions this week and get approved, they'll be on the ballot in November, where the citizens can say, you're not protecting us, Maui County, you're not protecting us, Hawaii government, you're not protecting us, United States government, we have to do it ourselves. So this is an excellent model for what's happening around the world. Now, what we're seeing, what you see behind me is really a paradise. What you're not seeing are the level of poisons and misery that this industry is creating among the people, although we hear story after story. Now, as I've been traveling around the country, I've been hearing similar stories of people, and I say, how many of you in the audience have removed GMOs from your diet and noticed an improvement in your health? And I can tell you in about 100 different events, the #1 symptom that people get better from when they remove GMOs is gastrointestinal disorders. Crohn's disease, irritable bowel, inflammatory bowel. Also autoimmune disease, immune system problems like allergies, asthma, headaches, brain fog, aggression, depression, symptoms of autism. We hear all sorts, a whole range of issues related to when people get rid of GMOs, how they feel better. Now, what we're looking at this time in this world are two possible futures. Monsanto's future was described to its Arthur Andersen Consulting years ago, who asked the executives to describe the ideal future of Monsanto executives, and they described a world in which 100% of all commercial seeds were genetically engineered and patented. And Andersen worked backwards from that goal to create the strategy and tactics to achieve it. Now, although their fast-track plans have been dismantled by tipping points in Europe and rejections in different countries, they still have the same plan to replace nature. But it has expanded. It's not just the seeds, it's also the insects and the livestock, the trees. Basically, they want to eliminate the products of the billions of years of evolution and replace it with designer organisms using designer genes designed for their profit and control. Now, that's their ideal future. Our ideal future is to uphold the nature of nature, to make sure the intelligence of nature continues in its perfect plan, and guided, of course, by crossbreeding, but not blasting genes into genomes, causing massive collateral damage and unsuspecting side effects. So now we're at a pivotal point right here. The biotech industry still has a plan to replace all of the foods that we eat, and basically all of it is in the pipeline somewhere. And over here, there's fantastic advances in natural, organic, sustainable, agroecological growing of food and growing of forests, etc. So we're at the pivot point. Now, it turns out that in 100 years, when they look back at this time, they may say that the thing that protected the genetic integrity of our planet for all future generations turned out to be the sales of grape nuts at Walmart. It sounds bizarre, but it may be true. Here's why. The most effective way that we have found to get rid of GMOs has been through a tipping point of consumer rejection. That's why it was kicked out of Europe. It was kicked out because the consumers became aware of it because of a high-profile food safety scandal that erupted in 1999. Within 10 weeks, it was kicked out of nearly all the food companies. Now it's just not served in Europe, not because of the government, but because of the food companies responding to the citizens. We saw a similar tipping point against bovine growth hormone and a similar tipping point against all GMOs in the natural product sector last year, ushered in by a statement by the president of Whole Foods that said, when a product becomes non-GMO project verified, it increases sales by 15 to 30%. Now imagine if you're selling through Whole Foods or other natural products stores and you hear that your competitor is going non-GMO project verified and it will increase their sales by 15 to 30%. It means it'll decrease your sales by the appropriate amount. Now that's the foundation of a tipping point, the market share battle. And that's what we're seeing right now in Walmart, Safeway, etc. We have Cheerios, non-GMO in its original brand marked on the side of the package, grape nuts on the front of the package. The side of the package is not so strong, the front of the package is very strong because you get the point of sale interest. So if grape nuts increases sales in the conventional supermarkets, the rest of the food industry realizes, I can't afford to wait till my competitor declares non-GMO before me. So we are right now in the window of opportunity. And so the Institute for Responsible Technology, we're educating the targeted demographic groups that shop in the traditional supermarkets, but who would be more inclined, more receptive to the message that we know changes people's diet. So we are educating moms with stories by moms who've switched their kids, their whole family to non-GMO and shared those stories with us. We're educating pet owners, same thing with the cats and dogs as with the children. We're educating healthcare professionals who are now by the thousands prescribing non-GMO diets. We're educating the chronically ill who are suffering from diseases we think are related to GMOs. And of course, there's the religious people who think GMO means God move over. So we invite you to go to responsibletechnology.org. You can support us by signing up for our newsletter and then posting and sharing what we produce. You can provide donations towards our 5-year plan to end GMOs, both in food and feed. And you can also participate in our Tipping Point Network. Certainly get involved in the local efforts to label, and we may see a preemption of state labeling by the FDA. And so the FDA may say, oh no, we don't want a patchwork of state labeling laws, we're going to do it nationally, and then they're going to put it on mothballs for years. But what might move the FDA to actually put in a meaningful labeling law is a tipping point. Because once the food companies remove GMOs or start to, their objections to mandatory labeling may completely disappear and they may end up on our side of the negotiation table. So even for mandatory labeling, the tipping point is critical. So we first of all, I want you to know, having traveled on this issue and spoken on this issue and worked on this issue for 18 years in about 40 countries, I have never seen this opportunity so ripe in the United States. Back in 2007, 15% of Americans said that they avoided or reduced GMOs. In 2010, it was 25%. In 2013, it was 39%. Now in 2007, 38% of the people said that they were avoiding or reducing growth hormones. The next year is when Walmart kicked it out. So we're about the same level of rejection of GMOs as we were back then when the bovine growth hormone tipping point occurred. So we're right now absolutely on the edge of a tremendous victory. And where does that victory come from? It comes from us. It comes from all of us making healthier non-GMO choices and telling our friends and family and community about the same. So I wanted to give you the good news that we're actually winning. I don't look at the Obama administration for the signals of success. I don't look at governments in general. I think what happened in Vermont passing the labeling law is outstanding. Of course, Maine was great and Connecticut was great. Then we have to support the labeling initiatives in Colorado and Oregon and all the legislative efforts. But what I see as most effective and most important is hitting the tipping point of consumer rejection, and we are almost there. So we may not have to march on Monsanto very long. We may have to bury their ashes, and that will be very fine. And I wouldn't mind burying the ashes behind me in this beautiful ocean here in Maui in Hawaii. So thank you all let's all thank each other for our collective support of this global endeavor to protect our ideal future, and that is to protect the nature of nature. Safe eating.